Okay, everyone, so this is lecture 4, which is gonads, gonadotropins, and gametogenesis. So let's get started. So far in the class, we've talked about sex and gender and all the different ways that we can interpret those words. We've also talked about the factors that end up determining our biologic sex in terms of which internal and external reproductive structures we have, our best understanding of how our gender identity develops and forms, and the same thing for sexual orientation. So now that we know from learning about the development of biologic sex how our gonads become testes or ovaries, now it's time to talk about what they do and what controls them to make sure they're functioning properly. So gonads in general, be they testes or ovaries, have two jobs.
Those two jobs are to produce hormones, in this case specifically sex hormones, and to produce gametes. So in the case of the testicles, the male gonads, we're going to make testosterone. And in the case of the ovaries, they will make estrogen and progesterone. For gametes, which are our sex cells or reproductive cells, in males, the testicles are going to make sperm, and in females, the ovaries will make oocytes or egg cells. So then the next question becomes, well, what actually are hormones? Which is a really good question, actually. And the answer is that hormones are chemical molecules that we use as messengers in our bodies.
Another way to think about it is by looking at this map here. And I don't know if I'm allowed to, no, I'm not going to mess it up. So you can see on the map on the left, there's a little yellow house that says my house. And so the dotted blue path there would be like passing a note, right? Sending this chemical message, this hormone, from one region to another close region. We have a special word for that. It's paracrine, Paracrine. The other method would be to use the transportation system of the body. So kind of looking at this red dotted line that's using the roads in this map example. But in the human body, the way you get from one place to another place far away is through the bloodstream. So that type of hormonal signaling is called endocrine, Endocrine. So we have these two different ways that hormones can travel, either paracrine, just an area that's directly adjacent, or endocrine, where they travel through the bloodstream to get to farther away areas of the body. Here is all of that information for you in text in case you missed anything or you want to check your spelling. Another characteristic of hormones that's important to know is that I can't advance the slide. There we go, is that they require receptors. So you might recall that one of the intersex conditions that we talked about was where the individual didn't have testosterone receptors and therefore couldn't, quote, see the testosterone. So in order for a cell to receive and get the signal from a hormone, it must have the specific receptor for that hormone. Also, receptors are specific. So the receptor for testosterone is different from the receptor for estrogen. So you have to have the correct receptor in order to see that specific hormone. Another characteristic of hormones that's important to talk about, oops, there's the information about receptors in case you needed to pick something up that you missed. Sorry, I can't see what slide is coming next, so it's kind of exciting here. Is whether they are free or whether they are bound. So here we have Pornstache from Orange is the New Black being escorted off the premises. So in this case, he is bound, right? He has these monitors holding on to him, these chaperones, okay? Now, in the human body, when we're talking about sex hormones, when we're talking about testosterone or estrogen, the chaperone that often binds to those hormones and makes them inactive and unable to work is called SHBG. That stands for sex hormone binding globulin. I won't ask you to know what the letters stand for, just know that it's SHBG that binds to both testosterone and estrogen and prevents them from being able to act in the body. At any given time, only a small percentage of the testosterone, particularly in the human body, is free and able to act. And so if levels of SHBG happen to change in someone's body for one reason or another, that's going to impact the proportion of hormone that is free versus bound. So that'll come up again later when we talk about hormonal contraceptives. And there's the text information for that. So when we think about hormones, the three characteristics that I'm going to ask you to understand is that they can travel either in an endocrine fashion through the bloodstream to a distant organ, or in a paracrine fashion, which is just to a nearby region. They require receptors in order to be able to enter the cell and do their job and convey the message, and they can be free versus bound. So that's our little aside about hormones.